intelligence as suited his own purpose, and busily occupied in this way, turned into Holborn for the 20th time, when a great many women and children came flying along the street, often panting and looking back, and the confused murmur of numerous voices struck upon his ear. Assured by these tokens, and by the red light which began to flash upon the houses on either side, that some of his friends were indeed approaching, he begged a moment's shelter at a door which opened as he passed, and running with some other persons to an upper window, looked out upon the crowd. They had torches among them, and the chief faces were distinctly visible. That they had been engaged in the destruction of some building was sufficiently apparent, and that it was a Catholic place of worship was evident from the spoils they bore as trophies, which were easily recognizable for the vestments of priests and rich fragments of altar furniture. Covered with soot and dirt and dust and lime, their garments torn to rags, their hair hanging wildly about them, their hands and faces jagged and bleeding with the wounds of rusty nails, Barnaby, Hugh, and Dennis hurried on before them all, like hideous madmen. After them, the dense throng came fighting on, some singing, some shouting in triumph, some quarrelling among themselves, some menacing the spectators as they passed, some with great wooden fragments on which they spent their rage as if they had been alive, rending them limb from limb and hurling the scattered morsels high into the air, some in a drunken state, unconscious of the hurts they had received from falling bricks and stones and beams, one borne upon a shutter in the very midst, covered with a dingy cloth, a senseless ghastly heap. Thus a vision of coarse faces, with here and there a blot of flaring smoky light, a dream of demon heads and savage eyes, and sticks and iron bars uplifted in the air and whirled about, a bewildering horror, in which so much was seen, and yet so little, which seemed so long, and yet so short, in which there were so many phantoms not to be forgotten all through life, and yet so many things that could not be observed in one distracting glimpse, it flitted onward and was gone. As it passed away upon its work of wrath and ruin, a piercing scream was heard. A knot of persons ran towards the spot. Gashford, who just then emerged into the street among them. He was on the outskirts of the little concourse, and could not see or hear what passed within. But one who had a better place informed him that a widow woman had descried her son among the rioters. "Is that all?" said the secretary, turning his face homewards. "Well, I think this looks a little more like business." Chapter 50.